Anything else, or should we jump into 3Waters?
No, 3Waters. I'm ready for it.
Because I thought a bit of light-hearted banter tonight around 3Waters. So Q&A in the weekend. We've got a couple of stories from Q&A. One is the minister, or he's not the minister, but the National Party MP, Simon Watts, who was speaking on behalf of National over this. And then we've got a couple of mayors talking about it as well, all from the Q&A program. So, because National's come out and they've called it their local water done well policy, whatever. And the first part of this conversation is actually just talking about what is the plan? What is this local water done well plan? Can you please explain it to us? And I have to say, Jessica's hair is on point. That's just a personal opinion, but we'll move on from that. Here we go.
Absolutely. So we've announced our local water done well policy yesterday. 4 key components of that. One, to firstly repeal the 3Waters legislation that's on the table, get rid and scrap the mandated co-governed entities, restore council ownership and control, a key element and key point of difference, what the sector has been calling for. Thirdly, really ensure that we've got strict water quality regulations. Also importantly, strict investment regulations, which will ensure that money going in and collected for water rates actually goes into water infrastructure.
Okay, this is really important. And no one's picked up on this yet. And Jessica didn't pick up on this. So let me paint you a picture, baby birds. I'll feed you. Because National has spent the whole year, right, the last 12 months, talking about this controlling Labour government and them trying to mandate and order what local councils are doing. Remember, that's been a massive criticism. I'll play this bit back again because I think we might have been talking about it. Just have a listen to one of these points. It's called water investment.
Strict investment regulations.
Hang on.
Welcome back. You're watching 12 after 8. The Prime
It's all gone wrong.
For years and years.
All right,
and entities need to be financially sustainable. Infrastructure and regulations really ensure that we've restore council ownership and control.
I'm sorry about that.
Element and key
so it's the next one, I think.
What the sector has been calling for.
Water quality, and it's the one after that.
Really ensure that we've got strict water quality regulations.
So the next one, listen to the next one.
Importantly, strict investment regulations.
Which
will ensure that money going in and collected for water rates actually goes into water infrastructure. And lastly,
okay, really important, because that's a potential government telling the council what they have to do with that water. You got that? That's the government. Imagine that they win. They're the government. They get to make this policy.
The government. That's the government stomping on the little guy.
No, they are mandating that any money taken in for water must be spent on water infrastructure. So they're telling councils what they have to do. This is the party that for the last 12 months has been rallying, and this is not the only example of this. Trust me, there are more examples of this as we go through. But this is the party that for the past 12 months have been talking about how dare they mandate to council what they have to do, how dare they try and control it. And this is the first example of them saying that money that you take in council, we are saying you have to do these things with it. It's actually the same criticism. It might be a different topic that they've been lumbering at the Labour Party for the last 12 months. I'll play a bit more of this.
And I think the major point of difference is around ensuring that those planned for water services are financially sustainable, because the challenge has been that money has been collected across the country in areas, but hasn't necessarily gone back into that investment. These entities need to be financially sustainable, and we've got mechanisms that will allow them to do that.
We've got mechanisms to make them spend the money on that thing. So I actually don't mind that as a policy, but what I do mind is inconsistency. What I do mind is this National Party saying when we're government, that terrible Labour government told the councils what we'll do. Oh yeah, we're going to tell them what to do, but that was bad when Labour did it, but we're going to tell them what to do. Shall we, any thoughts?
I like the bullet points. Like I can get rid of one of those bullet points. He can just sit here going, a new policy is get rid of the other guy's policy. No Māori, no money. There you go. It's wishy thinking. It's like, well, Gore's going to fix their pipes with spells from Hogwarts. They might as well go out and say that. It makes no sense.
Well, it's going to continue on because Jessica's next question to him was around the costs. What are the costs? And listen very carefully, because she asks the question, and then to her credit, after 60 seconds with him not answering it, she asks the question again, word for word. And I love it when reporters do this when people don't answer. So this is asking about the costs of this and if it's going to be, how's it going to be better than Labor?
What will your plan do to the cost of water bills and to rates?
What will your plan do?
We're very clear on this, that our policy position will be cheaper than Labor's mega entity bureaucratic model, which also has complex co-governance. And I think a conga line of consultants and bureaucrats that are lining up in behind
bureaucrats.
We acknowledge that, pipes and investment in infrastructure is going to need to occur. Our view is that actually putting the power with local communities is going to be a cheaper mechanism. Labor need to articulate clearly how they're going to build all these new pipes and culverts without anyone paying for it.
Here it comes.
And we've been very clear that actually we're going to provide access to long-term funding and financing mechanisms to match those long-term assets.
Great. So what will your plan do to the cost of water bills and
word for word?
So our view is that it's definitely going to, under our model, rates are not going to increase.
Really important.
Are not going to increase in comparison to Labor's 3.
Okay. Rates are not going to increase. Well, but the thing is that's a government, will they be government telling councils you cannot increase your rates? Because he says their plan is rates are not going to increase. How does the central government say to Dunedin City Council or to Waimakariri or to Hutt Valley or to Auckland, how does the government say you're not allowed to increase your rates? He's just made the claim that with their 3Waters, rates will not increase. That sounds like a bottom line to me. That sounds quite controlling of local body government.
And that definitely sounds like if you vote for that and then your rates go up and you go, hey, man, you promised me, I'm furious because my rates have gone up. And they're like, well, we're the government now and you can't do anything about it for 3 years. Suck it.
So there's the first two things where this party who have been criticizing the other party for mandating things over local body council have mandated two things so far. Yeah. They've mandated that money's going to be spent where they tell the council to be spent and that rates aren't going to go up. So there's at least two so far. We'll play some more of this.
Waters model and the status quo. And that is because we're going to be ensuring that these councils have financially sustainable plans and they have access to long-term debt funding. One of the major issues to date is that the borrowing for water infrastructure has been done on a short-term basis. We need to spread that long-term borrowing to match long-term assets. These are assets that last 30, 40, 50, in some cases longer periods.
Great.
So borrowing. Now, let's just be clear here, guys, right? If I say to you, Chewy, if I say, oh, the house you want to buy, it's 500K, but you don't have to pay anything. Your outgoings aren't going to go up because we're going to get the money from the bank. And then you're going to have your asset. Hang on. How does the bank get the money back? Oh, Chewy, you'll be paying for it. Yeah, you'll be paying for it, but there'll be no money. It's like, so when you borrow, to get assets, whatever they are, be it personal house or be it pipes under the ground, that then has to be paid. If it's an asset owned by a council, who pays for that? I believe that would be the ratepayers. So therefore, are they going to try and shuffle this by saying rates haven't gone up, but by the way, there's a new additional fee at the bottom for $350 a year, which is interest on the debt that your council now has. Now, again, I'm not saying this to defend Labor's plan because Labor's plan had to be paid for as well. Fine, no question there. But what I'm saying is they're making claims that seem to be quite contrary to the criticisms they had of Labor. And there seems to be quite a bit of gray area between what they think is like paying for and paying more, in my opinion, Chewy.
This is the party of financial nous, because Labor doesn't get numbers, right? And this is the most bullshit thing I've ever heard. It's like, so all of those things that you don't like, they're not going to happen. And all the worst case scenarios that you're afraid of, also not going to happen. There's literally no downsides to this, guys. Just trust me.
It-
Who is this guy? I feel like he's the goat that they pull up on Jurassic Park to lure the Tyrannosaur out. Like,
Well, and
it's not good, my dude.
Remember as well, this is the party, as is their bride to be act, who are saying you're lumbering the future with debt, Labour. Why are you lumbering our children with borrowing all this money to keep those businesses alive? Why would you do that? Why would you borrow so much money and lumber my grandchildren to pay for it? It's like, well, hang on.
Your grandchildren like clean water.
But again, I don't have a problem with the concept. I have a problem that Labour is this is the same sort of thing Labour's been doing or thinking about or talking about that National's been criticising them for. That's my problem. To be clear, I don't have a problem with the idea of borrowing, right? I don't have a problem with the idea of borrowing to fix up the infrastructure and paying for it. I do have a problem with National saying bad. Hey, by the way, we're kind of doing the same thing. In fact, ours might even be a bit more bro-y and a bit more sort of mandatey, but you're bad. That's where my problem is. Yeah. Speaking of Chewy, let's have a look at another small thing about small bureaucracy, right? Less bureaucracy we want. Let's have a listen to this next commentary, which is talking about an investment regulator. What they're going to do is they're going to have an investment regulator.
And I think that is fair, because when you talk with ratepayers, there's real concerns around the fact that actually their revenue and their rates money going in to pay for these water assets hasn't necessarily occurred.
Agreed.
Sometimes we've seen councils using that revenue to fund other nice to have things versus the actual water.
So we're going to tell them where
That's
they have
why
to spend their
we've got
money.
the investment regulator in place. And that is really an important aspect in terms
Investment
of making sure that we've
regulator.
got the right belts
Sounds
and
a bit
braces
bureaucratical.
around the overall model to make sure that these councils are investing in water infrastructures. They're ring fencing the revenue that they receive, and it has to go back into water infrastructure.
We mandate it.
To making sure that they've got revenue sufficiency, which means that these entities can stand on their own 2 feet. And they also need to be able to deal with growth, right? So a number of our councils are growing, and we need to be able to make sure that water infrastructure is not a blocker of more housing in this country, which it has been in some parts.
Now, I don't know what your definition, Chewy, is of, I didn't bring up the footage there, did I? Sorry about that. But your definition of bureaucracy is, but if they're creating a whole new department of investment regulator around this, that sounds like bureaucracy to me.
It
That
really
sounds
does
like
sound
another
like they're spinning
layer.
up something.
Another layer of bureaucracy. I like it when my camera asses out like that. It looks like I'm sitting in some kind of cave. It sounds like another layer of bureaucracy to me. And I'm just not sure that the National Party of 2022 will put up with this, because it's kind of like having a czar. You know what the Republicans think of czars in America? It's a bit the samey. I apologize about my camera if you're watching. I don't know what's going on, but it's giving me grief tonight.
It's just so weird. Like, I mean, they must have known, like, with the floods in Auckland and that sort of thing, the chat about 3Waters just absolutely spiked. And they go, oh, well, we've got to get some wins on the board, and here's something that's quite pertinent. And they've just shat out this policy that is getting absolutely torn to shreds, makes no sense at all. Like, this is what they've had cooking for, like, as long as Labour has been talking about 3Waters.
Yeah.
I'm sure National has been trying to come up with something, and their utter failure to come up with something better that accomplishes anything, I think speaks worlds about where they're at.
Let's play this last bit, because this is talking about, I'm probably not going to adjust my camera actually, because it's playing up tonight and it's just going to go in and out and in and out and in and out. And I don't know, it must be a battery issue. I apologize. So what am I going to look like? Let me just see how rubbish my thing now looks. Oh, look at that. You can see everything, including my vodka sitting in front of me, because I can't zoom in. I should move my vodka. I think I've got an alcohol issue problem. Okay, so what we're going to do is play this last bit as well, and then we're going to get into what the mayors have to think about this. So this is this is kind of hilarious. I'll just play it for you, then we'll look at it at the end. This is talking about how local communities, based on their response to the floods, makes them better at decision making around 3Waters. I'm not joking.
Oh, okay.
I'm not joking.
Okay.
He actually says we've just had demonstrated to us how resilient and good the local groups are. If I turn my camera off, Chewy, just tell me if my mic cuts off. I am going to just turn it off because what's the point? If my mic stays on, I'll just leave it off for a while until I get the battery back. Hang on, I'm just turning my camera off. Tell me if I stay with you. I can still. All right, I'm just going to leave that off for a while because if I can give some battery power to it, we'll see what happens. It's actually plugged in, so maybe the cable's loose or something. All right, so I'm going to stay like that for a while. So he actually says, because we've now got the evidence at how good the local community can organize itself based on the floods, that means, I'm paraphrasing, that means they're the right people to make decisions around 3Waters. I shit you not, that is the summation of what he's about to say.
As we've seen with the delivery of the cyclones and the way in which local communities have responded and actually dealt with the challenges locally, central government in many cases has been too slow to respond. And so what we've seen in the last 3 weeks, I think, reinforces and evidences that local communities are best placed to deal with these local assets. We need to put the right measures in terms.
So did you get that? Because of how local communities dealt with the floods, that means that is now the evidence we need to say they're best to deal with the local assets, because local communities came together in a 1 in 100-year flood or whatever it was, a civil emergency, because they came together under a civil emergency. That means National thinks, or at least National's saying, that they're the best people to look after assets, because there is a definite connection, Chewy, between flooding waters and fresh water to your pipes, perhaps, or something like that. We'll just finish this off. I think this has got about 30 seconds to go.
In terms of regulation around them, that they deliver water quality that is at appropriate, safe standard, investment regulation around making sure that money coming in goes onto those water infrastructures, and their plans are financially sustainable, because financial sustainability is a key difference between the status quo and Labor's 3Waters model. That is the key aspect that will ensure that what these councils do today is going to last for the next 30 years.
There you go.